Welcome back to Human Design Center. I'm glad that we share a common interest in human design, the science of differentiation, the art of living your life correctly, according to your unique design and genetic matrix that sustains it. You have a unique cosmic imprint, and you may start learning about your uniqueness by listening the gates of your chart. Human design is about the chance that we have to diminish the resistance of life, to attract what is correct for each of us, and for our own cross of incarnation. Today, you are going to approach, as a learning support, Hexagram 33 retreat, privacy, active withdrawal, and the transformation of a weak position into a strength. Hexagram 33 is part of second trimester of Dubhe, where we accomplish our purpose through physical form, civilization. In this second trimester, all the concepts and thoughts that were built in the first trimester are materialized in physical form in order to help our body, the form, to go through the journey of life. Gate 33 corresponds to goddess Ma'at, Egyptian goddess of truth, justice, and cosmic harmony, goddess of divine law and order. She upholds justice and maintains societal harmony. This is an archetype who brings the expression of society's unquestionable ideals and how to fit in. The four throat center gates of Ma'at are all about expression of form, labeling it, telling stories about it, leading it, and remembering it. When distorted, this becomes intense homogenization, leading to bitterly living out the ideals of the past rather than your own authentic, individual, and differentiated successful truth. This is an archetypal energy demanding truth, justice, cosmic order, harmony, balance, moral integrity, and principles governing life. Ma'at is the spiritual concept referring to the order and harmony resulting from divine creation. Have you truly lived in harmony? Do you have a light heart that will pass the test of the feather of Ma'at? Zodiac sign, Leo. Gate 33 flows within the collective sensing circuitry, which is about past situations or ideas or events, past experience and sensing, about visual perception. It's about sharing from what we felt in the wave. Keyword, sharing. Center, throat center, which is about communication, manifestation, metamorphosis, transformation through human interaction. The harmonic gate is number 13, the fellowship of man. The listener, being part of the projected channel 13 with 33, the prodigal, a design of a witness. The opposite gate is number 19, approach wanting. This 19th gate is part of the projected channel 19 with 49, channel of synthesis, aminoacid, stop codon, relevant organ, thyroid, throat. Tarot card associated, Two of Swords, Gate 33. In second trimester, in Ma'at, forms the channel with Gate 13, located in the first trimester of Alcyone, connecting to Kali archetype. Glutamine of Gate 13 reaches a stop codon in Gate 33. Stop moment is in the throat center, stop manifesting before impacting, retreat before materializing or expressing secrets of 33rd gate, be cautious, stop communicating. We might say that Kali stopped sharing the secrets of Ma'at in her 33rd gate of communication. Kali has to regroup, to wait for the right moment or opportunity. How does this play in real chemistry of our body? What is a stop codon? How is our health influenced when we do not stop sharing secrets? If we share or communicate at the wrong moment, what happens with our health when there is no retreat or privacy prior to expressing secrets, prior to share communication? A stop codon is something that is easily understood as a general function in relation to amino acids. Otherwise, it takes a while until you understand or accept the functioning of Gate 33. So, as a parallel, a stop codon is to protein synthesis what a period is to a sentence. Since a protein isn't infinitely long, biology created an incredibly clever way to say, stop, you've reached the end of this protein. In a plain language, proteins are brought here to the stop codon by ribosomes, and we need to understand this process biologically in order to understand the functions they stop in our body graph and in our lives. I will try to explain in my own simple language, non-medical, what I learned about how does the ribosome decode the signals to stop protein synthesis. In cells, all proteins are produced by ribosomes that read messenger RNA 1 codon or 3 nucleotides at a time. Protein translation terminates when a ribosome reaches one of 3 nucleotide sequences that encode for stop codons. These sequences of UAA, ochre, 33, UAG, amber, 56, or UGA, opal, 12, are universal, signaling for translation termination in all kingdoms of life. This is why skipping a stop codon or stopping too early produces an incorrect protein, and this type of error is linked to over 10% of human genetic diseases. Thus, accurately decoding stop codons is critical for the normal functioning of all cells. Now, having all this mechanism in mind, let's go back to human design. Gate 33 is known as the gate of the wisdom of knowing when it's time to retreat, introspection, and when's the time to come and share the lessons learned like the wise elder of the tribe. This gate is located in the throat center, which governs communication and manifestation. This gate is part of the channel of Prodigal 1333, which is associated with memory, reflection, storytelling, and collective experience. It's also about turning past pain or challenges into guidance for others. Gate 33 needs solitude before speaking or manifesting, materializing. The energy of this gate involves privacy before speaking, or it needs to hold back communication. The right moment is the key. Timing is essential. We observe the same pattern to the functioning of the stop codon. It detects the right moment when to cause release factors to bind to the ribosome. At this point, no amino acid is added. The right moment is essential for all 3 stop codon gates. We can think of gate 33's energy as having a form of pause or stop when it comes to communication. This gate doesn't always feel the need to speak. It waits for the right conditions or emotional clarity before expressing itself. If the timing isn't right or the expression isn't clear, the energy might stop or hold back from being expressed. Thus, in a metaphorical sense, Gate 33 might be seen as a stop in terms of knowing when not to speak, when to hold back and reflect, when to retreat and look for privacy before speaking, much like a stop codon signals the end of a sequence, allowing no further actions to occur. This introspective aspect is built into the nature of Gate 33. It is not impulsive, but waits for alignment and clarity before speaking. Waiting means privacy, retreat, solitude before speaking. The function of a stop codon is to signal the end of protein synthesis during the process of translation. Translation is when the ribosome reads the messenger RNA sequence and assembles amino acids into a protein. Stop codons serve as termination signals that tell the ribosome when to stop adding amino acids and release the newly formed protein. In essence, stop codons play a critical role in ensuring that proteins are produced with the correct length and structure, maintaining the accuracy of genetic expression. The reality is that ribosomes do not always stop at stop codons. Certain chemicals in your body can actually prevent ribosomes from detecting stop codons correctly. Likewise, 33rd gate people. Sometimes they do not stop at the right moment, or they do not retreat in privacy before speaking, and by doing so, their health might be impacted. Pay attention to the signals, as we learned that, and I repeat, stop codon serves as termination signals that tell the ribosome when to stop adding amino acids and release the newly formed protein. So this could be the mechanism that will affect the health of our thyroid or throat if we do not abide by the message of Gate 33. Well, this is what I know about stop codons, and I tried to share in an easy-to-follow language. I hope it's useful for the understanding of gate 33. So, since we've located the gate on the mandala and on the body graph, and we have a general summary of the essential characteristics of gate 33, you also know the benefits of the amino acid associated with the behavior of this placement. You have the elements to keynote the message of this gate. If you have this gate active in your chart, take your time, compose the key phrase of this gate, and feel how it resonates. Leave a comment, share your insights and understandings. Now let's have a look to the energy of gate 33, a gate of retreat, privacy. Gate 33 in human design is known as gate of retreat, from the I Ching's retreat, and it sits in the throat center, which is about communication and manifestation. Gate 33 is part of the channel of the prodigal, 13 to 33, which deals with memory, reflection, storytelling, and collective experience. The core meaning comes from the name, retreat, privacy. These words reflect the essence of pulling back, taking time away from others or from the spotlight to process and integrate. The keynote is active withdrawal and the transformation of a weak position into a strength. This is really deep, so let's dive into the meaning of it, piece by piece. 1. Active withdrawal. This is not escapism or hiding. It's a conscious and intentional retreat to reflect, recollect, and prepare. Like the hermit who needs solitude to find clarity, or an artist stepping back to reflect on a project. In Gate 33, withdrawal is wise, not weak. It allows one to process experience before sharing it meaningfully. 2. Transformation of a weak position into strength. When you withdraw, you're not giving up, you're gathering power. The weak position can refer to being overwhelmed, having unfinished emotional or mental processes, not being ready to speak or act. By retreating, you gather your lessons, integrate your experiences, and come back with wisdom and clarity. That becomes your strength. 3. Memory and storytelling. Gate 33 holds collective memory. It's deeply tied to remembering the past and reflecting on it in order to pass on a meaningful story. This gate, when active, often feels a need for privacy before speaking, because timing is everything. It waits to be asked or invited to share. 4. Low expression of this gate might be about hiding due to fear or shame, being silent when it's time to speak, feeling stuck in the past without integrating the lesson. 5. When you truly live the high expression of this gate, it's about wise storytelling that serves the community. It brings the gift of holding space for reflection before speaking. It's about turning past pain or challenges into guidance for others. If you have this gate together with emotional authority, if connected to the solar plexus through gate 13, or an emotional wave, the timing becomes even more important. You must feel emotionally clear before sharing or stepping back in. Imagine someone who went through a difficult breakup. Instead of posting online impulsively, they retreat, reflect, heal, and later write a powerful piece on self-worth that helps others. That's Gate 33 energy in motion. Let's enrich this description with the self-explanatory words of Ra Uru Hu from Line Companion. I quote, active withdrawal and the transformation of a weak position into a strength. We will now look at one of the two collective gates of identity, this one in the abstract process, the other is the logic process in the 31. The channel 3313 is the channel of the prodigal. It is the channel of the witness. The identity of the abstract process is rooted in what we call reflection and remembrance. Reflection and remembrance are part of this 1333. The voice of the 33rd gate is not a voice that says, I know I can contribute. This is a voice that says, I remember, or I don't remember. This is the remembrance that takes place at the end of an abstract process, and the 33rd gate is one of the three gates of aloneness. The 12th gate, the 40th gate, and the 33rd gate are the 3 gates of aloneness. Whenever I am dealing with abstract people, whether they have this gate or not, or the 13, I always remind them that in order for them to truly make sense out of their life, they have to have time in which they reflect. At the end of each day, at the end of each ongoing process, they would benefit from making an auric space for themselves where they are not being influenced so that they can have an opportunity to reflect on the experience that they have been through. This 33rd gate, retreat, is the gate of privacy. It is the privacy that says, I will not be able to remember everything unless I am left alone so that I can reflect on this process, and then I will be able to remember that, and in remembering that, I'll share my reflection with you. The 33rd gate, at its mystical level, is the gate of revelation. The unconscious 33 can speak of an unconscious remembrance that emerges out of the unconscious, and as such, can have a deep mystical impact. Above the lines, it says, active withdrawal. This is not passive withdrawal. This is not running away. This is not a gate that says, I want to be alone because I have to hide. This is a gate that says, I need to be alone in order to survive. I need to be alone in order to be clear. And the transformation of a weak position into a strength. Every abstract person is at their weakest point at the moment that an experience ends. This is the weakest point for an abstract person because their temptation is to jump into the next experience without reflecting on what they have been through. What happens to so many abstract people is that they keep on repeating the same experience, and that is not what the abstract process is about. It is about having an experience, reflecting on it, recognizing its fundamental worth, and then going on to the next experience, thus turning a weak position into a strength. The weakest position of the abstract being is the moment that the experience is over, and it is at that point that privacy, separateness, aloneness, and the opportunity for reflection is essential. This is a minor point. The abstract process being what it is, you can never know anything while you are in it. An abstract person can never know anything about the experience while they are in it. That is why the key to the abstract process is the 4629, which begins with the concept that you have made a commitment, and in that commitment, you are in the right place at the right time. The 29 makes a commitment, and the 46 says, I am in the right place at the right time. As long as you accept that, it does not matter what is going on in the experience because you can know nothing about it while you are in it. You can only learn from the experience when it's over. So, it is very important for abstract people to reflect on their experience and not simply to collect experiences. End of quote. I hope I've piqued your curiosity because we go on now to climb the 6 lines ladder of Gate 33. It's a process that will bring clarity to you in relation to nuances of the content and expression of the 33rd gate. At the end, we will touch upon the crosses of incarnation, where Gate 33 plays its role for our conscious sun and become part of the purpose. Let's see the 6 stages of development of this energy and possible dualism in its manifestation. Gate 33, line 1, avoidance. Avoidance. The ability to let others bear the brunt of misfortune. Let's see a quick recap of Gate 33, retreat, privacy, with the theme, reflection, storytelling, memory, and the wisdom gained through withdrawal. The function is to pull back from the world, to process and prepare for meaningful communication. Next to the message of Gate 33, we add line 1 as avoidance, the ability to let others bear the brunt of misfortune. This line brings a strategic survival quality to the retreat. It's the cautious foundational version of this gate. 1. Avoidance is not cowardice. It's wisdom in survival. Line 1 is about building a secure foundation, and here that means knowing when to step back to avoid unnecessary conflict or exposure. You observe quietly, rather than jumping into situations prematurely or impulsively. 2. letting others bear the brunt. This may sound selfish at first, but it's about timing and boundaries. It reflects an instinct for when not to get involved, letting others deal with chaos while you retreat and reflect. In historical or tribal contexts, this would be the elder or scribe who doesn't fight on the battlefield, but instead preserves the story for the future. On a psychological layer, there may be a natural instinct to withdraw from confrontation or drama. This isn't about fear, it's about preserving energy for what truly matters. You learn through watching, not through always participating. In a healthy expression of this line, you know when to pull back from a situation to gather clarity, avoid chaos, and protect your inner space. When unbalanced, you may avoid responsibilities, ghost people, or miss out on important growth moments by retreating too much or too early. The wisdom of line 1 in gate 33 lies in, not all fights are yours to fight. Sometimes your greatest strength is stepping away, not because you're weak, but because you're saving your voice for the right moment. The gift here is in timing and knowing that retreat isn't surrender, it's strategy. Sun exalted, the wisdom in a weak position to recognize that survival demands complete withdrawal, retreating when one realizes that they are in a weak position. From the throat center, gate 33, retreat, privacy, is about withdrawing to process, reflect, and gain clarity before speaking or acting. It's the gate of remembering, sacred silence, and knowing when to step back, not out of fear, but out of timing and self-preservation. Line 1 is avoidance, the foundation line of the Hexagram 33, which is about retreating when one realizes that they are in a weak position. Gate 33, line 1, avoidance. Avoidance, the ability to let others bear the brunt of misfortune. Let's see a quick recap of gate 33, retreat, privacy, with the theme, reflection, storytelling, memory, and the wisdom gained through withdrawal. The function is to pull back from the world, to process and prepare for meaningful communication. Next to the message of gate 33, we add line 1 as avoidance, the ability to let others bear the brunt of misfortune. This line brings a strategic survival quality to the retreat. It's the cautious foundational version of this gate. 1. Avoidance is not cowardice, it's wisdom in survival. Line 1 is about building a secure foundation, and here that means knowing when to step back to avoid unnecessary conflict or exposure. You observe quietly, rather than jumping into situations prematurely or impulsively. 2. Letting others bear the brunt. This may sound selfish at first, but it's about timing and boundaries. It reflects an instinct for when not to get involved, letting others deal with chaos while you retreat and reflect. In historical or tribal contexts, this would be the elder or scribe who doesn't fight on the battlefield, but instead preserves the story for the future. On a psychological layer, there may be a natural instinct to withdraw from confrontation or drama. This isn't about fear, it's about preserving energy for what truly matters. You learn through watching, not through always participating. In a healthy expression of this line, you know when to pull back from a situation to gather clarity, avoid chaos, and protect your inner space. When unbalanced, you may avoid responsibilities, ghost people, or miss out on important growth moments by retreating too much or too early. The wisdom of line 1 in gate 33 lies in, not all fights are yours to fight. Sometimes your greatest strength is stepping away, not because you're weak, but because you're saving your voice for the right moment. The gift here is in timing and knowing that retreat isn't surrender, it's strategy. Sun exalted, the wisdom in a weak position to recognize that survival demands complete withdrawal, retreating when one realizes that they are in a weak position. From the throat center, Gate 33, retreat, privacy, is about withdrawing to process, reflect, and gain clarity before speaking or acting. It's the gate of remembering, sacred silence, and knowing when to step back, not out of, but out of timing and self-preservation. Line 1 is avoidance, the foundation line of the Hexagram 33, which is about retreating when one realizes that they are in a weak position. This exaltation says, I don't need to be on display. I don't need to prove my power. My strength is in knowing when to pull back and in trusting the timing of my return. Mars in detriment, where courage is just plain foolishness, unable to retreat when overwhelmed by stimulation. This Mars in detriment, which has a very different tone from the exalted Sun version. This expression teaches through challenge and tension. It shows us what can go wrong when we ignore the wisdom of retreat. As a quick reminder, Gate 33 is about withdrawing in order to reflect, holding memory, learning from the past, waiting for the right moment to speak or share. It's deeply tied to timing, silence, and wisdom through experience. Line 1 is avoidance. Line 1 is always about foundations. It needs security, safety, and inner stability before engaging outwardly. Here, the keynote is avoidance, retreating when one realizes they are in a weak position. When healthy, this line knows that now is not the time to fight or speak. I'm out of alignment. I must step back, recover, and return when I'm strong. Mars in detriment is about the immature, the reactive expression. Now let's look at what happens when this line is expressed through Mars in detriment. Mars is the planet of action, assertion, courage, and even aggression. But in detriment, that energy becomes impulsive, uncontrolled, unwise, misplaced courage, or just recklessness. The full line description is where courage is just plain foolishness, unable to retreat when overwhelmed by stimulation. 1. Where courage is just plain foolishness. This is a false bravery, where someone forces themselves to push through a situation that's clearly too much for them. It's the kind of courage that ignores reality. You keep going even though your body, your energy, your intuition is saying, stop. You confuse persistence with power, but it's actually self-sabotage. This is something like this. I should leave this argument, but I stay and make it worse. I should rest, but I push through burnout. I should say no, but I people please out of pride. It's ego-driven courage, not soul-aligned wisdom. 2. Unable to retreat when overwhelmed by stimulation. Here, you're so overstimulated, so emotionally or mentally flooded, that you can't access the wisdom to step back. You feel trapped in the moment. You freeze or you lash out. You keep engaging when the only intelligent choice would be withdrawal. This is someone who stays too long in chaotic environments, argues when they should pause, shares when they should reflect, forgets the importance of privacy, silence, and timing. The high expression, the real self, with a lot of potential for growth, is when, through trial and error, this line learns the hard way that true strength is found in knowing when to step back. Once learned, it can develop tremendous wisdom about timing and energy management. The lower expression is when one pushes forward when it's dangerous or unnecessary, can't recognize weakness or overstimulation, feels the need to prove something. This line really shows what happens when we don't honor the need to retreat. Eventually, the pain of staying in overstimulation teaches the importance of retreat. Once you embrace strategic retreat, this line can transform into incredible emotional intelligence, someone who knows exactly when to withdraw, observe, and come back stronger. Ra Uru Hu in Line Companion wrote some bright explanations about this line. I quote, "The first line, the foundation of this hexagram, says avoidance. After all, this is the framework of the identity of the abstract person. Avoid everyone until you have reflected, and then you can share your remembrance. Then you can offer your witnessing. That is what it's about, offering the witnessing. The wisdom in a weak position, meaning that you finish an experience. That is your weakest point. To recognize that survival demands complete withdrawal. Pulling away is the key to the nature of retreat. Retreat is there to build strength, and abstract strength is built through reflection. Without reflection, one can be a fool over and over again. It is okay to be a fool once. If you reflect on it and understand the nature of what you have experienced, you don't have to be the fool the second time. Mars in detriment. Where courage is just plain foolishness. This is a person that will not reflect but jump to the next thing, or in the sense that it is the identity out of the throat. I will not reflect on my experience and remember it in depth. I will simply babble it all out the moment that it is over. The moment that the experience is over, the abstract person does not know anything about it. Whatever they babble out will only be an aspect of the wave that they have been through, and not the proper reflection. In the White Book, retreating when one realizes that one is in a weak position. Again, at the end of the experience is the weakest point. On the other side, unable to retreat when overwhelmed by stimulation. This is the key to that. The abstract person that is pulled from one experience immediately to the next, this is always going to be a problem for them. When you are an abstract person and you are in the middle of a process and all of a sudden there is an emergency, if you are drawn away in that moment from what you are doing, you lose the value of everything that you have been doing because you won't be able to reflect on it. If you can't reflect on it when the experience is over, you will not remember it. You will not be able to bring out of that the necessary qualities for the remembrance. In the relationship between the hexagram and the genetic codon structure, we have 3 genetic codons that are called stop codons. Stop codons literally are the punctuation points at the end of a genetic expression. 2 of the genetic stop codons are in the abstract process in the throat. We will see in the 56th gate the abstract voice that says, I believe, or I don't believe. This is a stop codon. In other words, the conceptual idea is nothing that goes any further than its capacity to be able to express and share it. The 33rd hexagram is a stop codon, and so is the 12. Here, the process comes to an end when the reflection is complete. We saw that the introspection of the first line is the recognition of the value of privacy and its power, because one can grow in that. End of quote. Gate 33, line 2, surrender. Surrender, the recognition that surrender is a necessary step in the process of retreat. Let's hear a quick recap of Gate 33, retreat my privacy. This gate is about the need to withdraw, to reflect, to process memory and experience before expressing or sharing. It holds collective memory and wisdom and lives in the throat center, which is all about communication. Gate 33 waits for the right timing and invitation to speak, often after a period of introspective silence. We add the layer of line 2, surrender, the recognition that surrender is a necessary step in the process of retreat. This line is about realizing that letting go or surrendering control is part of the wisdom of retreat. Where line 1 focused on avoiding conflict, line 2 is about yielding to a greater process. 1. Surrender in this context means not resisting the need to step back, not fighting against life when it's telling you to pause, reflect, or rest, allowing what is without forcing, pushing, or overanalyzing. Sometimes we want to stay in the game, even when the wisest thing is to step away. This line says, trust the process, step back when needed. 2. Letting go of ego or control. This line asks for humility. You may not get the recognition, spotlight, or clarity you want right away. But surrendering the need to control how others see you, or when you'll speak, creates inner peace. 3. Deep wisdom. This surrender is not defeat. It's alignment with timing, truth, and nature. There's often a higher intelligence at work that line 2 of gate 33 is surrendering to. Think of the caterpillar surrendering to the cocoon before becoming a butterfly. That's the kind of retreat and transformation we're talking about. In the healthy and empowered expression of this line, you trust when it's time to rest, step back, or pause without guilt. You surrender to inner growth. When not aligned, you may feel like a victim of retreat, or resent needing privacy, or resist downtime because of fear or ego. This line is about yielding to wisdom. It teaches you that in stillness, silence, and retreat, there is power and preparation. True surrender opens the doorway to your voice, because you'll speak only when the message is ready. So, surrender of this line is acceptance plus trust. It's the emotional and spiritual softening that lets the retreat process do its work. Instead of struggling to act or be seen, you surrender to a moment of stillness, which ultimately sets the stage for authentic expression. Jupiter exalted. The recognition that surrender to superior forces can be an opportunity to expand one's own strengths and eventually triumph. Embracing powerful forces in order to lay the foundation for future success. This is a beautifully layered line, and when expressed through exalted Jupiter, it holds deep wisdom about humility, timing, and long-term success. Gate 33 is the archetype of the storyteller, the one who withdraws to reflect, remember, and integrate experience before speaking. Its core themes are withdrawal, timing, reflection, privacy, honoring memory, and learning from experience. Line 2 is surrender. Line 2 in human design is always naturally gifted but also shy or unaware of its own strength at times. It prefers freedom and flow, not pressure. This line carries the energy of someone who says, I don't want to fight. I'll go with the current, but not to give up, to grow. Jupiter exalted, the great teacher and benefactor. Jupiter in exaltation brings expansion, wisdom, faith, optimism, and the ability to grow through life's experiences. It offers long-term rewards and mature perspective. So when Jupiter is exalted in this line, the message is, surrender is not failure, it's part of your growth. We are going to break in a few parts. The line of Jupiter, which is the recognition that surrender to superior forces can be an opportunity to expand one's own strengths and eventually triumph. 1. The recognition. Well, this implies awareness. You come to a point of clarity where you see the bigger picture. You're not resisting just to prove something. You're conscious of what's happening. You're choosing to surrender, not being forced. This already makes the surrender empowered, not passive. 2. That surrender to superior forces. This is about yielding to something greater than yourself, a person with more power or wisdom, a life event or natural force, a moment when your own energy is depleted and it's wise to let go. It's not submission from fear, it's trusting a greater flow. Sometimes this looks like not resisting change, accepting someone else's leadership, allowing rest or silence when your voice isn't being heard. You're not giving up. You're giving in to growth. 3. Can be an opportunity to expand one's own strengths. This is where Jupiter's magic comes in. By surrendering, you're not weakened, you're strengthened. You learn, you observe, you integrate. You give yourself time and space to become wiser, more grounded, more effective. Surrender becomes a foundation for mastery, not a detour. 4. And eventually triumph. This is the long view. You may step back now, but is to return stronger later. This kind of person wins by not fighting. They grow silently, observing from the sidelines, then emerge with timing, skill, and grace when the moment is right. 5. embracing powerful forces in order to lay the foundation for future success. You lean into the greater wave instead of swimming against it. You recognize power outside yourself, but instead of resisting, you align with it. You trust that this alignment will become your strength, not your defeat. Gate 33.2, with Jupiter exalted, teaches, surrender is strength when it's conscious and strategic. Letting go of control is sometimes the fastest path to wisdom and success. By aligning with larger forces, life, timing, leadership, cycles, you build the foundation for future triumph, quietly, wisely, and sustainably. This is not the energy of a warrior. It's the energy of a wise student, preparing for mastery by honoring the process. Neptune in detriment. Unlike the reasoned and calculated surrender above, the deeper and personal surrender, the feeling that one's original position was a delusion, and the impressionability that makes might right, a public embrace of powerful forces and a private resentment of their power. This version is deeply emotional, personal, and often tied to inner confusion, loss of clarity, and struggles with identity, power, and illusion. As a short refresher, Gate 33 Retreat Privacy lives in the throat center. It's about withdrawing from the noise, remembering and processing experience, honoring the right moment to speak and share, carrying stories and wisdom, but only after reflection. Line 2 is called surrender, but here it doesn't mean defeat. It's about knowing when and how to yield. Except with the Neptune in detriment, things get emotionally foggy. Neptune in detriment is about the mystery, confusion, and illusion. Neptune governs dreams, ideals, faith, inspiration, but also delusion, projection, and self-deception. In detriment, it clouds things. You can't tell what's real. It creates scenarios where you may lose your inner clarity, be overly influenced by outer power, feel confused, disoriented, or spiritually betrayed. This is surrender, but not the empowering kind. This is surrender that hurts and often feels involuntary. The line text can be understood piece by piece. 1. Unlike the reasoned and calculated surrender above, the deeper and personal surrender. This immediately contrasts with the Jupiter exalted version, which is wise, strategic surrender. Here, the surrender is emotional, raw, and often painful. You're not stepping back with a plan. You're giving in because you feel lost, overpowered, or disillusioned. It's not about logic. It's about the emotional intensity of being overwhelmed. You might feel like, I thought I knew what I was doing, but I was wrong. 2. The feeling that one's original position was a delusion. This is a deep hit to the identity. You thought you were right. You had principles, beliefs, ideals, and now they feel false. You realize you may have been naive, idealistic, or even manipulated. This leads to existential crisis energy, where your foundation feels shattered. Did I believe in something that was never true? Was I the fool? How could I have been so wrong? This kind of realization can't be reasoned through. It's felt deeply and personally. 3. And the impressionability that makes might right. When you feel lost and disillusioned, you may start to gravitate toward outer power, even if it's not aligned. You begin to think, if they're in control, they must be right. You become overly impressionable, susceptible to strong voices or external authority. This can lead to giving away your power emotionally or mentally. It's a kind of surrender that comes from hopelessness, not strength. 4. A public embrace of powerful forces and a private resentment of their power. Here's the emotional contradiction. You go along with authority or dominant energy on the surface. You may support the leader, the system, the trend externally. But internally, you feel bitter, resentful, maybe even betrayed. This creates a split between outer compliance and inner resistance. You may feel trapped. You may feel shame. You may even judge yourself for selling out or pretending. It's a surrender that feels like spiritual compromise. Gate 33.2, with Neptune in detriment, is the emotional initiation into wisdom. It shows how painful it can be when your ideals collapse, but also how that pain can carve a truer self out of the illusion. Not all surrenders are defeats. Some are rites of passage into spiritual clarity. Ra Uruhu said that when you get to the second line, you get to a projected field, and you get to somebody who projects outwards that they are private. They are projecting outwards that they are the reflecting ones. They are projecting outwards that they are the ones that remember. Remember the nature of the paper tiger. They may or may not remember. They may or may not enjoy their privacy. All of these things are possibilities in their process. Jupiter exalted. The recognition that surrender to superior forces are anything that is going to pull you into a new experience. After all, the abstract being is trapped by the experiential wheel. These are people that are really on the wheel. There is this constant pressure on them to enter into another experience. Can be an opportunity to expand one's own strength and eventually triumph. In other words, it is better to wait and avoid a temptation and build up one's reflective capacity, and that may lead to success in the future. In the White Book, embracing powerful forces in order to lay the foundation for future success. Because this is a projected field, you have people who are saying, "Leave me alone," but they do not necessarily know why. They know that they need to be left alone at the end of an experience, but it is not like they are actually using that to get into a deep reflective process. They may or they may not. What they recognize genetically is that it is better for them to be apart, to have this aloneness and the opportunity to be separate, than it is to get hooked up into another experience. This is the genetic structure in that. Remember, this is a stop codon saying, "Okay, no more." These are people that can be very withdrawn without that necessarily being an advantage. These are the people that can complain about having to be alone, for example. Neptune in detriment. Unlike the reasoned and calculated surrender above, the deeper and personal surrender, the feeling that one's original position was a delusion, and the impressionability that makes might right. In the White Book, a public embrace of powerful forces and a private resentment of their power. There is a deep resentment when one cannot complete one's process, and the moment that powerful forces are there and pulling on you to remember, if you are not clear, in this line we are dealing with projection, you can really feel like, oh, that whole experience was a waste. Imagine what this is like for somebody who is going through an experience, and when they finish that experience, before they really have a chance to reflect on it, in order to see what its value really was, they get pulled by other forces. They get pulled to remember and share their witnessing. What they say does not carry the clarity of their experience. In that moment, by not having impact on those that are pulling that out, they can feel like, well, that whole experience was a waste because I did not really get to see what it was. My reflection on that is not of value. And they put that out into the world and get smashed for that by the outside because they are not paying any attention to it. This is all about the process of development, of being able to project these things outwards. But every time that you have a second line, you always have to see that you are going to be challenged in that process. Anybody who is projecting out is going to meet a very strong challenge coming back at them. The 33rd gate, because it is the gate of privacy, is the gate of being closed in that sense. That is, being closed in a room, or somebody that is forced to go into retreat by being sent to jail, or by ending up in a monastery, or retreat through illness and states of paralysis. In the second line, you see people that are locking themselves up in a room, and when you get to the 5th line, you can see that the outside world will lock you up in the room. End of quote. Gate 33, line 3, spirit. The attitude that turns retreat into victory. This line is poetic and powerful. It's about the inner posture you hold during times of withdrawal and how that attitude determines whether your retreat becomes weakness or wisdom, defeat or victory. Let's remember the context of Gate 33, retreat, privacy, and the throat center. This gate holds the energy of reflection, memory, and timing. It's about knowing when to pull back from the world, process your experiences, and then speak or act when the moment is right. It's not just hiding, it's strategic withdrawal for deeper clarity and insight. Line 3, Spirit, adds another layer to the basic message of Gate 33, with the attitude that turns retreat into victory. Line 3 in human design is always about trial, error, adaptation, and resilience. It learns through experience. So in Gate 33, Line 3, you're not just reflecting, you're growing through retreat. You're using your attitude, your inner spirit, to alchemize solitude into strength. 1. First piece of the theme, the attitude. This is the key. Retreat in itself is neutral. What makes it empowering or disempowering is how you hold it internally. This line teaches your mindset is everything. You can retreat and feel like a victim, or you can retreat with purpose, reflection, and trust in your path. 2. The second piece, that turns retreat into victory. Victory here doesn't mean external conquest. It means clarity, wisdom, self-mastery. This line transforms retreat into a spiritual win because you've grown, centered yourself, and kept your light strong. It's not about doing more. It's about being still and becoming more. In practice, imagine someone going through a tough emotional cycle. Instead of reacting, oversharing, or rushing forward, they step back, reflect, nurture themselves, and return later with wisdom and grace. That's the essence of Line 3 Spirit, using retreat to become stronger, more rooted, and more aligned. In the high expression of this line, you hold a resilient and trusting attitude in retreat. You use reflection to strengthen your spirit and prepare for aligned action. When you stay within the low vibe of this line, you fall into defeat, self-pity, or bitterness. You feel like retreat is failure, and you may come out of it wounded, not wiser. The core message to remember is that retreat is not weakness. How you retreat matters more than the retreat itself. Your inner spirit, your mindset, heart, and trust determines whether you rise from it with fast victory. Jupiter exalted. The responsible and principled retreat based on preservation, but with the determination to persevere. Privacy as a path to success. Gate 33 is the archetype of the storyteller, the one who steps back to observe, reflect, and eventually share the memory or lesson when the timing is right. It's about knowing when to retreat, honoring privacy, transforming experience into wisdom, waiting for the right moment to speak. Line 3 is spirit. Line 3 in human design is always experimental, resilient, and built on trial and error. But here, in Gate 33, it becomes more internalized. It's about preserving spirit during retreat. The Line 3 keynote is the attitude that turns retreat into victory. This isn't about escape. It's about retreating with intention, holding your integrity, and using your inner strength to transform a temporary step back into eventual triumph. Jupiter exalted is mature, benevolent expansion. Jupiter governs growth, wisdom, truth, and spiritual integrity. When exalted, it brings purposeful expansion, honorable action, faith in timing, noble motives. In Gate 33-3, exalted Jupiter supports retreat as a strategy for long-term growth, rather than a reaction to fear or failure. We will understand the line description piece by piece. 1. The responsible and principled retreat. This isn't running away. This is stepping back with intention. You know when a situation doesn't support your values or energy. You choose to preserve your integrity instead of forcing yourself to keep going. This retreat is ethical and thoughtful, not reactive or shameful. You might say, I'm not abandoning this. I'm creating space to protect it and myself. This is where you retreat in a mature, grounded way. 2. Based on preservation. Here, the motivation behind retreat is to protect what matters. Your energy, your truth, your spirit, your relationships, or your bigger vision. You don't retreat to disappear, you retreat to preserve. This is like pruning a tree. Cutting back doesn't mean it's dying, it's preparing for stronger growth. 3. But with the determination to persevere. You're not giving up. You're stepping back with the clear intent to continue later. You're waiting for better timing. You're regathering your strength. You're trusting the long game. This is courageous patience. You know the value of retreat because you are committed to the outcome. It's not about avoiding the fire. It's about tending your flame in private until you're ready to shine again. 4. Privacy as a path to success. This is the key wisdom of Gate 33 expressed beautifully. Your silence has power. Your privacy is a tool for integration. What you learn in isolation becomes the story, the wisdom, the message when the time is right. This line says, keep your process sacred. Share only when it's been matured by solitude. It teaches that real success is built in quiet moments, not in public hustle. Gate 33.3, with exalted Jupiter says, there is nobility in silence, power in privacy, and triumph in patience. You don't need to fight every battle. Sometimes the wisest path is retreat, not to quit, but to gather your strength and come back even more aligned. Mars in detriment, a lack of responsibility in retreat. The bridge burner, a drive for privacy that will cut off its relationships, often abruptly. Gate 33, line 3. With Mars in detriment brings tension, impulsiveness, and emotional volatility into the process of retreat and privacy. From the throat center, Gate 33 carries the energy of withdrawing to reflect, to gather memory, and to wait for the right time to speak or act. It's the archivist, the storyteller, and the one who knows. Sometimes silence is the most powerful expression. Gate 33 is not about avoidance. It's about timing and wisdom. It respects the need for privacy as a way to process experience before sharing it. Line 3 is spirit. Line 3 is the trial and error line, full of resilience, but also mistakes. It experiments, it bumps into life, and learns by doing and failing forward. The core keynote of line 3 is the attitude that turns retreat into victory. But here, with Mars in detriment, this attitude becomes reckless, reactive, and often self-sabotaging. Mars in detriment is impulsive force, poor timing. Mars usually represents action, drive, courage, warrior energy. But in detriment, Mars loses discipline. It becomes impulsive, explosive, unstable in timing, driven by ego or emotional reactivity. In this placement, Mars no longer supports healthy withdrawal, it destabilizes it. Let's try to understand the description line of Mars in detriment in small parts. 1. A lack of responsibility in retreat. This is about immature or emotionally reactive withdrawal. Instead of retreating with intention and clarity, like Jupiter exalted, the person runs, escapes, or ghosts without considering the consequences. It's not rooted in reflection, it's rooted in frustration or overwhelm. This retreat might avoid accountability, come across as selfish or cold, hurt others without explanation. There's no structure or wisdom in the exit, just escape. 2. The bridge burner. This is powerful imagery. Instead of retreating to return later with wisdom, this person cuts ties, burns bridges, says goodbye without warning. It's dramatic, final, and often fueled by anger or pride. The person may regret it later, but in the moment they feel, I'm done and I don't care what happens after this. This line in its shadow can have a kind of emotional scorched earth policy. 3. A drive for privacy that will cut off its relationships, often abruptly. Here, the motivation is privacy, but it's handled destructively. The need for space is valid, but the way it's claimed hurts others. It's like slamming the door, not gently closing it. This behavior can sever bonds unnecessarily, create mistrust, leave others confused or wounded. The person may want peace or solitude, but they create conflict on the way out. Well, the impulsive retreat can be some time, about leaving abruptly without resolution or care. Privacy as escape can be used as solitude to avoid responsibility. Burning bridges in a low vibe can be about ending relationships too quickly or harshly. Sometimes, unstable timing is about reacting emotionally instead of responding wisely. This version of Gate 33.3 lacks emotional maturity in how it navigates separation. It's privacy without empathy, retreat without reflection, withdrawal without wisdom. This placement often hides a fear of vulnerability, difficulty with conflict resolution, a need to protect oneself without knowing how to set boundaries peacefully. So instead of saying, I need time, they might say, I'm done with you, and regret it later after the damage is done. Privacy is sacred, but when claimed without care, it becomes destruction. The journey is learning to protect yourself without burning what still holds value. Gate 33, with the Mars in detriment, carries deep emotional fire. It's raw and honest, but it needs to mature through experience, often through the pain of watching what happens when bridges are burned too quickly. In Line Companion, we find a very relevant description of this position. I quote the words of Ra'uru Hu. With the third line, we reach the end of the lower trigram process. Here, the bond that is being made and broken is the bond of privacy. These are people that will naturally seek out their privacy. That is part of their process, but it will not be like the second line, which is just focused on that. In the third line, there is the beginning of the recognition that there is the other. It is the beginning of that process. It is not really there until the fourth line. And the capacity to adapt is the recognition that one has to come out of the privacy when it cannot just be held back inside. The attitude that turns retreat into victory. The victory comes after the reflection. This is the whole beauty. The weakest point is at the end of the experience. The power comes after the reflection, and then the real value of the remembrance can bring about victory, the completion of this process. Jupiter exalted. The responsible and principled retreat based on preservation, but with the determination to persevere. In other words, yes, leave me alone now. I have to think about all of this, but I'll see you tomorrow. This is not leave me alone. I never want to see you again. This is the other side of this line with Mars and detriment. A lack of responsibility and retreat. The bridge burner. I have reflected on all of this. I never want to have anything to do with you again. It's over. These people go into retreat, reflect, and break whatever the bond was. This is the kind of person that says, leave me alone now. I want to go home and think. I will see you tomorrow. The next day, they will call you up and say, I don't want to see you anymore. I have thought about it. In other words, they can just simply break the bond at that point. This line is called spirit. The spirit that lies within the whole nature of retreat is that these people are essential for us. If these people do not tell us about the experience, we don't learn. So, there is also a part of us that is trying to get them out of that retreat so that they share their secrets, their reflections with us. After all, this is a collective gate. There is a lot of pressure on these people to share what it is that they have inside of them. In the White Book, Privacy as a Path to Success, or a drive for privacy that will cut off its relationships, often abruptly. All of this is due to the nature of reflection. These people know that they have to go into retreat, and they know that they have to reflect. But the moment that the reflection is not positive for them, it is very easy for them to break off the contact. These people can be disliked for that. There is the moment where they'll cut you off, and you don't get access to their remembrance, to their experience anymore. End of quote. Gate 33, line 4, dignity. A lack of turmoil in retreat. This line is graceful and strong. It speaks of inner stability, composure, and the kind of wisdom that doesn't flinch when it's time to step back. Let's recap in a few words the context of Gate 33, retreat privacy. This gate is about withdrawing in order to reflect, process, and gain clarity. It's part of the channel of the prodigal, 3313, the keeper of collective memory, wisdom, and storytelling. Gate 33 holds back until the timing is right to speak and share what it has learned. Line 4, dignity. A lack of turmoil in retreat brings in a deep emotional and spiritual calm. Here's what that actually means. 1. The first piece of the theme, a lack of turmoil. This refers to your emotional state during retreat. You're not panicking, doubting, or struggling internally. Instead, you're at peace with the need to pull back. You're still centered and confident in the pause. There is no inner chaos. You're not fighting the silence. You're embracing it. This is rare because many people associate retreat with failure, rejection, or weakness. But this line says, there's no shame in stillness. I know exactly why I'm stepping back. 2. The second piece of the theme is dignity, the name of the line. Dignity is grace under pressure. You carry yourself with integrity, maturity, and restraint. Even when you're not in the spotlight, you remain self-assured and calm. You don't need attention or validation to feel whole. It's an inner nobility. You don't lower your standards, emotions, or presence, either when woman, even in solitude. The wisdom of this line lies in the fact that this is the energy of someone who doesn't make a scene. They know when to leave the room, go inward, take time to process, and they do it without drama. They step away without flinching because they know this is part of the process. I will return when I'm ready, and what I bring back will be valuable. At the higher expression of this line, you retreat with poise, grace, and clarity. Others respect your calm. You create safe, sacred space for reflection. To the lower vibe or when you are not aligned, you appear composed, but are emotionally disconnected. You suppress your feelings instead of processing them, which can lead to numbness or avoidance. Line 4 is about relationships and external influence in the human design line architecture. So here, your composed retreat sets an example for others. People may not understand your silence at first, but over time, your dignified withdrawal builds trust and respect. When you return and speak, your words carry more weight. A few words to remember in relation to line 4. No turmoil equals no inner war. You're at peace with the pause. You retreat without resistance, and that calm becomes your strength. You teach others that silence can be sacred, not awkward. Pluto exalted, the underlying faith and resurrection that turns retreat into an opportunity for renewal and regeneration. The healthy retreat for regeneration. Line 4 is dignity. Line 4 is about influence, friendship, and stability. It is less experimental than line 3. Line 4 wants groundedness and a solid foundation. The core keynote of line 4 is a lack of turmoil and retreat. This is a dignified, emotionally regulated form of withdrawal, not a dramatic escape, but a calm, deliberate step back rooted in trust. Now let's bring in Pluto to this basic concept. Pluto exalted is about transformation, death, and rebirth. Pluto is the planet of transformation, death and regeneration, power and evolution, hidden forces and psychological depth. When Pluto is exalted, it operates with deep integrity, faith, and spiritual maturity. It doesn't destroy for drama, it destroys for rebirth. Having all these in mind, we can analyze piece by piece the full line meaning of Pluto exalted, the underlying faith and resurrection that turns retreat into an opportunity for renewal and regeneration. The healthy retreat for regeneration. 1. The underlying faith and resurrection. This is spiritual trust, the belief that something better will come after stepping away. It's a faith that retreat isn't loss, it's a sacred pause. Even if something ends, it can be reborn in a new form. This is the person who withdraws not in fear, but with hope and wisdom. They're not worried about what they're leaving behind, they're focused on what will bloom after the retreat. 2. That turns retreat into an opportunity for renewal and regeneration. This retreat is purposeful. You step back to rest, heal, detox, gain clarity, or rediscover joy. It's not a breakdown, it's a reset. You don't collapse, you consciously pull away to recharge. Pluto's exaltation here brings the alchemy of transformation. When I return, I'll be renewed, wiser, stronger, more aligned. This is the Phoenix energy, stepping into the ashes with full trust in the resurrection. 3. The healthy retreat for regeneration. This is a model example of how to withdraw with grace, intention, and emotional intelligence. It's healthy because it's not reactive. It's rooted in self-care, not avoidance. It's supported by faith, not fear. It's timed well, not too early, not too late. You know how to pull away, allow yourself time to rebuild, and emerge stronger. This is the placement of a person who says, I'm taking space not because I'm giving up, but because I'm preparing to return stronger and more whole. If the power of this placement is resisted or misused, you are in the low expression of it, such as fear of stepping back, thinking they'll lose their influence, avoiding the need for regeneration, pushing through exhaustion, retreating but not truly renewing, staying numb or stuck, trusting in renewal but not allowing time for it to happen. Even with Pluto exalted, this line still needs discipline to pause and time to transform. The gift is there. It must be claimed through conscious rest. Real power is knowing when to step away, not to hide, but to become. You retreat with trust, not fear. You rest with faith, not guilt. And when you return, you do so more aligned, more whole, and more ready to share your truth. Neptune, in detriment, without the guiding light of resurrection, the inevitable dissolution that leads to the degeneration. Forced to retreat and unable to see its regenerative qualities. Line 4 is dignity. Line 4 always brings themes of stability and community, influence, a desire to hold a healthy foundation, emotional steadiness. At its highest, this line withdraws gracefully and wisely, with emotional clarity and poise. The line keynote is a lack of turmoil in retreat. This means stepping back without panic, drama, or collapse. It suggests a confident withdrawal that holds space for transformation. Now we add to all these the influence of Neptune in detriment. Neptune is the planet of spiritual ideals, mysticism and dreams, imagination and illusion, surrender and transcendence. When Neptune is in detriment, these themes become distorted. Illusions instead of insights, confusion instead of surrender, delusion instead of faith, avoidance instead of transcendence. This is a murky Neptune, like a fog that never lifts. Now, we take the semantic pieces from the line of Neptune in detriment in order to understand the specific message and potential of it. Without the guiding light of resurrection, the inevitable dissolution that leads to degeneration, forced to retreat, and unable to see its regenerative qualities. 1. Without the guiding light of resurrection. This implies the loss of faith in rebirth, an inability to see retreat as something positive or meaningful, feeling like stepping back is a failure, not a wise move. Where Pluto, exalted, sees potential in retreat, Neptune in detriment sees only loss, confusion, or collapse. There's no vision for what could be, just a sinking feeling that the end is the end. 2. The inevitable dissolution that leads to degeneration. This is the feeling of withdrawing and falling apart instead of healing, retreating in a state of emotional fog, loss, or hopelessness, not just stepping back, but slipping into decay, depression, or disconnection. There's a downward spiral here. Without faith in transformation, the withdrawal becomes a place where energy weakens, where the spirit dims instead of strengthens. Degeneration means the retreat doesn't restore, it deteriorates. 3. Forced to retreat and unable to see its regenerative qualities. This is very telling. The retreat isn't chosen consciously, it feels forced. It may happen after burnout, a breakdown, or a sudden loss, and the person doesn't see the purpose in it. They're blind to the possibility of healing or growth in this space. They may feel, I'm just stuck. Everything's falling apart. What's the point? Even if the potential for healing exists, they can't access it emotionally or spiritually. When not aligned, each theme brings a not self-expression of this placement, such as loss of spiritual direction is seen in being unable to see the value in stepping back. Emotional confusion is perceived when retreat feels like abandonment, not wisdom. You believe nothing good will come from the pause, and you become hopeless. You withdraw, but do not recover. Instead, you sink deeper. With Neptune in detriment, you might build some deep psychological pattern. This expression can reflect grief that hasn't been processed, a history of loss or abandonment, causing fear of pause, spiritual disillusionment when ideals collapse, a tendency to numb out or escape into fantasy during isolation. Neptune in detriment here may manifest in someone who retreats into Netflix, addiction, or over-isolation, feels like withdrawing means giving up, doesn't know how to use quiet time to reconnect to themselves. But in your personal growth, you might turn this placement into a path to transformation. The lesson here is to reclaim the meaning of retreat, to rediscover the regenerative power of stillness, even if it's uncomfortable at first. This line must learn to find purpose in solitude, seek support when lost, rather than isolating further. Remember that retreat without faith becomes decay, but retreat with awareness becomes rebirth. This is a line that asks, can you let go of the need to understand everything and trust that stepping back is still a part of your journey forward? Ra-Uru said, remember, you are dealing here with a collective channel, a collective process and identity. The collective is rooted in sharing, and when you get to the upper trigram, you get to the transpersonal lines in which they are very much aware that there is a harmonic gate at the other side. The harmonic gate to the 33 is the 13, the fellowship of man, the gate of secrets. There are secrets in the 13 that the 33 can be aware of and recognize that it has to get access to these secrets. When it gets access to those secrets through reflection, it can then reveal them. The fourth line of the 33 is as close as you come to finding a line that is religious. I did not say spiritual, and I did not say mystical. I said religious. The whole abstract process is rooted in belief, and this fourth line, which is about externalization and about being one-tracked, is called dignity. A lack of turmoil in retreat. Pluto exalted. The underlying faith in resurrection that turns retreat into an opportunity for renewal and regeneration. This is the kind of retreat where people say, I have to go and meditate. I have to go and be silent in order to be empowered. In that silence or in that retreat, they seek out that power in order for them to feel better about what it is that they have gone through as an experience in life. But the terminology itself, renewal, regeneration, resurrection, all of these processes, when you get to the Neptunian detriment, without the guiding light of resurrection, the inevitable dissolution that leads to degeneration. These people are very fixed on being able to see that what they can reflect on can truly be of value. They understand that they have a responsibility, genetically speaking, to be a witness. There is an aspect of them, see the resonance to the first line, first principle, avoid the outside, that needs this deep reflective process in their life. They will be the kind of people that get involved in all kinds of different levels of meditation. In terms of the White Book, the healthy retreat for regeneration, I need to get away from everything. I need to go through my process, and I think things out, and I need to make sense out of my life. This is a common attribute for these people. If they can't make sense out of their life, out of that process when they are in retreat, unless they have faith, they are going to get depressed. Unless they have faith, they will feel like the whole thing is just a waste, and they can become very sad people. These people really need some cosmic level of hope, even if it is not true, that the time in their aloneness is of value for them. They will seek out formulas for that, like sitting in a church on Sundays, getting down on their knees on Fridays, going up on the Himalayas on any given day. All of these rituals are there to go through this process of being separate and at the same time in stillness with the hope that in this quietness, somehow life can be resolved. End of quote. Gate 33, line 5, timing. Gate 33, line 5 is one of the most powerful and nuanced expressions in this gate, and it's called timing. The intelligent use of retreat to influence the outcome of events. This line really captures the strategic genius of Gate 33 when it's mastered. A quick refresher first of Gate 33, retreat privacy, is located in the throat center, expression, communication, timing. Has the theme of withdrawing, processing memory, reflection, and sharing at the right time. It's about holding wisdom, waiting in silence, and then speaking with impact. Line 5 is about timing and the intelligent use of retreat to influence the outcome of events. This line is all about mastery of strategy, patience, and leadership. 1. The first part of the theme, the intelligent use of retreat. Not just pulling away randomly, this is strategic retreat. It's the knowing. Now is not the time. I will wait, observe, reflect, and then move. It's like a chess master pulling back a piece, not to avoid a loss, but to set up a bigger win. Line 5 knows when to pause, when to speak, and when to hold silence as a power move, not as weakness. 2. The second part of the theme, to influence the outcome of events. This is key. This line doesn't just reflect, it knows that timing changes everything. By waiting for the right moment to speak or act, this line can reshape the entire situation. It's impactful. Your retreat is not passive, it's purposeful. Imagine someone who stays quiet during a heated meeting, then speaks one sentence at the perfect moment, and everything shifts. That's line 5 magic. This line's genius consists in deeply intuitive timing. It knows when not to act, and it's willing to wait. Deep influence, not by force, but through wise presence. Leadership through discretion. It's the counselor, the strategist, the wise guide who doesn't waste words. In the high expression of this line, You use reflection and silence with but on purpose. You influence others by acting at the right time, not all the time. The low vibe makes you become manipulative or passive aggressive, trying to control things by withholding, or you fear stepping forward even when it's time. So, line 5 in human design is the leader and fixer. It's projected, it draws attention. But in gate 33, it must remember the power is in restraint, not in always trying to fix or speak. When you combine dignity, line 4, with value timing, line 5, you get a person who is deeply trusted because they speak and act with purpose, calm, and accuracy. Let's recap and remember some key ideas for this 5th line. Timing is everything. Line 5 says, yes, I retreat, but I do it with vision. You influence the world not by being loud, but by being wise, calm, and deeply in tune with divine timing. Pluto, exalted. As important as the timing itself is the ability to keep secret one's intentions until the appropriate moment. The ability to keep one's intentions secret. Line 5 is timing. Line 5 is always about practical leadership, influence, and projection. People with line 5 are often seen as problem solvers or fixers, and they carry a strategic awareness of how others perceive them. Line 5's energy is about managing what is shared and when it's non-transparent on purpose, because it understands that not everything should be revealed immediately. The line keynote is, as important as the timing itself is the ability to keep secret one's intentions until the appropriate moment. The ability to keep one's intentions secret. Pluto exalted brings to this a specific message. Pluto exalted is about transformation, hidden power, and deep strategy. Pluto is the planet of power and transformation, the underworld, or what is hidden, death and rebirth, psychological truth, and control. When Pluto is exalted, it expresses with integrity and power, mastery of timing, inner strength through secrecy and depth, an intuitive sense of when to reveal or conceal. This is not about manipulation. It's about wielding power wisely and silently. Full meaning of gate 33.5. With Pluto exalted can be understood from the concepts of the line. As important as the timing itself is the ability to keep secret one's intentions until the appropriate moment. We are going to approach these concepts one by one. This speaks to a master strategist. It's not enough to know what to say or do. You must also know when. It's about discipline, patience, and restraint. You hold your cards close, not out of fear, but because you understand the power of mystery. You don't share everything prematurely, because you know premature exposure weakens impact. This is the person who observes, waits, and moves with precision. Now, it says in the line, the ability to keep one's intentions secret. This is the gift of discretion, knowing that not all truth is for all times. In practical life, this can look like withdrawing from a group or conversation without explanation, not because you're avoiding, but because you're preparing. Not revealing a plan, idea, or memory until the right moment when it can land with power and purpose. Refusing to explain your motives to people who won't understand. Choosing timing over validation. It's the quiet strength of someone who knows. I don't need to be understood right now. My clarity will come when it's time. When you express the mature energy of Pluto, it's about strategist silence, knowing when to speak and when to hold back. Power and privacy, by maintaining sovereignty over your insights. Deep transformation, when using reflection and timing to evolve and influence. Emotional integrity, if you do not use truth to provoke, but to uplify at the right moment. If you don't resonate or don't embrace this energy, it may show up as withholding for control or manipulation, being overly secretive to the point of disconnecting from others, waiting so long to speak that the moment passes, feeling burdened by what you know, unsure of when to share. But when Pluto is exalted, the potential is to rise above those shadows and channel secrecy into wisdom, purpose, and transformation. This placement is about the archetype of the wise keeper of stories. This is the one who holds memories, intentions, or knowledge, not to hide, but to protect it until it's ready to be shared. Like a healer who waits until the patient is ready. A storyteller who saves the final truth for the climax. A leader who doesn't announce their next move, but moves when it matters. This line says, "The silence is not empty. It is loaded with intention. You are the one who knows. It's not time yet, but when it is, I will speak, and it will be powerful." Jupiter in detriment. The tendency to want others to participate in the selection of the timing, which can lead to confusion. Without a sense of timing, letting others in on the secret prematurely with resulting confusion. Let's remember what line 5 is. It's timing. Line 5 in general tends to have a practical leadership-like energy, a kind of, let me show you how to handle this. But it can also project expectations onto others or feel pressure to act on behalf of a group. In Gate 33.5, this line relates to timing around revealing or sharing information. It's about understanding when it's appropriate to bring others into your reflections or stories. Jupiter in detriment. In this line is about the expansion that has gone off track. Jupiter is about expansion, teaching, values, sharing, the big benevolent planet. But in detriment, Jupiter's natural generosity and expansiveness can become excessive, overreaching, or ungrounded. It may lack discernment. This placement colors the line with a tendency to involve others prematurely, to want to share or teach before the timing is right. Putting it all together, Gate 33.5, with Jupiter in detriment. The tendency to want others to participate in the selection of the timing, which can lead to confusion. There's a desire to collaborate or bring others into your inner reflections, or maybe even involve them in when to share something. But in doing so, you may confuse yourself or others because the timing isn't clear or aligned. Others may not have your internal sense of rhythm or understanding. Without a sense of timing, letting others in on the secret prematurely with resulting confusion. You might reveal something too soon, maybe a story, a plan, or insight, and instead of being powerful, it causes misunderstanding or discomfort. The key lesson is to trust your own sense of timing and honor privacy until it's clearly time to share. The wisdom of the line is that it teaches the importance of discernment in timing, the potential for wisdom if you trust your inner clock, rather than seeking validation or collaboration too soon. Sometimes, silence is more powerful than premature sharing. Here is the explanation of Ra-Uru-Hu for a deeper and clear understanding of this line. I quote, "You know that the fifth line operates in a wave that we call the seducer and the seduced. So it is all about seduction. It is one of the things to recognize about the nature of all fifth lines. They all are deeply related to the question of timing. This line personifies that in its name. This is the line of timing. The fifth line is always getting projected on. So, in that sense, they are getting projected on that they are the seducer, but because of the projection coming from the outside, it does not mean that they are ready to fulfill that projection at the time when the projection is there. There is always this pressure of the fifth line where there is this projected field on the outside which is trying to pull them into some kind of response that they may or may not be ready for. If you have a child with the 33.5, you have a parent that says, "Why don't you stay in your room and play by yourself and close the door?" It is being projected on that child that he or she needs that privacy and that withdrawal. This is a projected field, And a lot of 33.5 children get locked up in their rooms very often. It is projected on them that they need to be alone and private. Due to this projection, it is even projected on them that they are not really social or capable of it. Timing. Pluto exalted. As important as the timing itself is the ability to keep secret one's intentions until the appropriate moment. This is the magic, that remembrance can bring in the right timing. Everything about this process is about reflection, going through it and completing it, and only then the capacity to be able to act on that and verbalize that, as in this particular case. What that means is that until the reflection is done, you cannot give in to the pressure from the outside. You can't. Only in the right moment, only when the reflection is done, then you have the power to universalize that reflection. In the White Book, the ability to keep one's intentions secret. You keep the secret until you know. In other words, the reflective abstract person is always at risk when they try to involve others in that process because they do not have their own opportunity to go through it and see it clearly. They can only express themselves when they are ready. Jupiter in detriment. A tendency to want others to participate in the selection of the timing, which can lead to confusion. In the White Book, without a sense for timing, letting others in on the secret prematurely with resulting confusion. Let us say that you are reflecting on how you experience your work, day by day, and you recognize, as you reflect each day at the end of your work, that you really do not like your job. Day by day, each reflection brings you closer to that point where you are really clear about that. This is not a work for me. I have reflected on that. I am clear about that. At the moment that you are really clear, you can quit your job, but only at that moment. That is the exalted. The detriment works in another way. You have this ongoing process on reflecting about the quality of your workplace, and you do not like it. Then you start talking to somebody that you work with, and you say to them, I don't really like this job, and I am really thinking that maybe this is not for me, and maybe I should do something else. In that moment of seeking out somebody else's reflection, experience, or guidance, in that moment, anything is possible. That person can have a friend who needs your job and can go to the boss and say, Louise is not happy. She is thinking of quitting. Louise goes home that night, goes through her reflective process and realizes, I really do like my job. I just have bad days. She comes into the office the next morning, and the boss comes over and says, You are fired. We do not like to work with people who hate their job. Whether this event is good or bad for Louise is open. This is not about a moral question. This is simply about mechanics. There are going to be these people who will always let others in. They just do. Sometimes that will be very confusing, and sometimes that confusion will work its way through. It is not about whether this is good or bad. It is just about recognizing that that is the mechanic. To recognize that something is a mechanic is in order that you can come to grips with accepting yourself. If you are somebody that cannot get to the point where you have the right timing, and you know that that timing is going to be disturbed by others, at least you can see that that is correct for you. It is not about changing it. It is about recognizing what is correct for you. The moment that you recognize that that mechanism is you and correct for you, the moment you surrender to that, you will find out what its value is. It is not without value. It is just one of many ways in which this reflective process works. End of quote. Gate 33, line 6, disassociation, the ability to let go. Gate 33, line 6, is often the most elevated, detached, and sometimes mystical expression of a gate. This is a powerful spiritual culmination of the gate of retreat. It speaks of a level of detachment, wisdom, and freedom that comes from no longer needing to hold on to the past or even the role you played in it. A quick recap of Gate 33, Retreat Privacy in the Throat Center, which is the voice of reflection, the storyteller who knows when to be silent, when to retreat, and when to speak from experience. Its purpose is to pull back, Remember, integrate lessons from the past and then share that wisdom with the collective. It's connected to memory, cycles, and the sacred pause before expression. To the basic message of Gate 33, we add the layer of line 6, disassociation, the ability to let go. This is a deeply transcendent line. Let's extract the message piece by piece. 1. The first piece of the theme is disassociation. In human design, line 6 is often the most aloof, observational, and wise. Here, disassociation isn't about emotional coldness or avoidance. It means the ability to step back completely, to detach from identity, memory, or the need to control, to not get stuck in the past, even the stories you once held dear. It's letting the memory be just that, a memory, not a definition of who you are. 2. The second piece of the theme is the ability to let go. This is the essence of it. Letting go of stories, of emotional attachments, of needing closure. Letting go of being the one to hold the history or tell the tale. Sometimes even letting go of your role as a guide or teacher. In other words, it's freedom. This line knows not everything needs to be remembered forever. Not every wound needs to be retold. Not every experience has to become identity. This is the gate of retreat, learning when to step away from even the process of reflection itself. In the high expression of 6th line, you can let go of the past with grace and peace. You don't cling to what no longer serves. You move forward freely, without guilt or the need to explain. When unbalanced, you may retreat so far that you become emotionally distant or disconnected from your own life. You might avoid processing experiences fully. Choosing detachment too early can show up as emotional numbing rather than spiritual clarity. The higher wisdom of line 6 lies in the fact that this line represents the final phase of a cycle, the point where you've experienced line 3, reflected line 4, waited for the right timing, line 5, and now you simply release. You don't need to control the outcome anymore. You don't need to hold on to the memory. You're free because you've processed the experience so completely, it no longer defines you. You become a quiet example of, I've lived it, I've learned from it, I've shared what mattered, and now I'm moving on. Gate 33.6 represents the ultimate spiritual freedom, detaching from the past with love, not fear. This is the wisdom of a person who no longer needs to explain themselves or cling to what has already passed. Sun exalted, the will to concentrate on revitalization and not be handicapped by persistent recriminations, the ability to let go and retreat, to enjoy privacy. Gate 33 is all about stepping back, creating space to reflect, process, and ultimately share wisdom, but only at the right time. This gate is about memory, storytelling, and retreat for clarity. Imagine someone who steps away from the noise to think, recharge, and return with something meaningful to say. Line 6 is release and renewal. Line 6 is the wise observer, the one who stands at a distance and sees the broader picture. It carries the potential for objectivity, transcendence, and leadership through being, not through doing or pushing. This line's theme is about letting go of the past, healing through solitude, focusing on personal revitalization rather than being caught in guilt, blame, or regret. Sun exalted here is the pure potential of the line. When a planet is exalted, it expresses the highest and most aligned version of the energy. The sun represents identity, consciousness, vitality, clarity, so its exaltation here enhances the ability to shine through solitude and inner clarity. The will to concentrate on revitalization and not be handicapped by persistent recriminations. 1. The will to concentrate on revitalization. You have the strength and clarity to focus on healing and recovery during your retreat. This isn't just escape, it's purposeful. You're recharging your spirit. 2. Not be handicapped by persistent recriminations. You're not bogged down by blame, regret, or what others think you should have done. You can let go of guilt, forgive, and move on, which is essential for authentic renewal. 3. The ability to let go and retreat, to enjoy privacy. There's grace in your withdrawal. You don't isolate out of fear, but out of self-respect and wisdom. You enjoy solitude, not to run away, but to realign and come back stronger and clearer. This line is about the power of release, releasing the need to explain, justify, or carry the weight of the past. It's about retreating with dignity, finding peace, and then, when ready, emerging with a renewed sense of purpose. It's the archetype of the quiet sage, the one who disappears for a time, returns lighter, and when they do speak, people listen, because it's clear their words come from deep clarity. Jupiter in detriment. The ability to shed the larger framework that precipitated the retreat, leaving nagging doubts that hamper revitalization. The inability to completely let go. Line 6 has the highest vantage point. It sees not just the moment, but the whole arc. This line's theme is often about release, especially from the past, and a quiet strength in choosing peace over drama. Jupiter in detriment is translated as generosity misapplied. Jupiter, in its exalted state, brings expansion, teaching, faith, and optimism. But in detriment, its expansive nature becomes misdirected, excessive, or lacking in wisdom. Think of trying to teach before learning the lesson, or trying to grow something in soil that hasn't healed yet. Now let's look at what we need to understand from this line description: the ability to shed the larger framework that precipitated the retreat, leaving nagging doubts that hamper revitalization, the inability to completely let go. 1. The ability to shed the larger framework that precipitated the retreat. This sounds positive at first, like someone removing themselves from a toxic system or situation. You're capable of stepping out of a bigger context, maybe a belief system, community, relationship, or societal expectation that no longer serves you. But here is the second part of the theme. 2. Leaving nagging doubts that hamper revitalization. Here's the rub. You may be able to physically or externally retreat, but internally you're still carrying it. There's a mental clutter, second guessing, or emotional residue that lingers, and it interferes with your ability to heal or renew. It's like leaving the battlefield, but still hearing the noise in your head. 3. The inability to completely let go. This is the core of the detriment. You may want peace, but something in you can't fully release. Old guilt, regret, what-ifs, doubts about whether the retreat was justified, fear of judgment or needing closure. So instead of true solitude, you may be in mental limbo, physically alone, but not at peace. You get the wisdom of this detriment when you understand that this placement doesn't mean failure. It points to a lesson. True retreat isn't just about stepping back. It's about emptying out the noise inside so revitalization can happen. If you carry the past into your retreat, it becomes a prison rather than a sanctuary. This line challenges you to trust your decision to retreat, stop seeking mental closure from things that are already behind you, create silence inside, not just outside. Gate 33.6, with Jupiter in detriment, is about the struggle to fully release the past. You may know that you need space and even take it, but if you're still mentally chewing on the old story, it slows down your healing. The deeper invitation here is to find faith in the act of release, even if you don't have all the answers yet. The message of this line is explained by Ra Uruhu. I quote his words: "We get to the 6th line, to the transition line. The formula for the 6th line is that they are not necessarily going to be fulfilling the potential of the gate. There is something that is of greater importance to them because the sixth line is not simply transpersonal in the sense that it understands the harmonic gate. In this case, it knows the secrets of the other end. It is more than that. It wants to see the whole complete circuit. It wants to see that the reflection covers everything, so that out of that reflection, the proper remembrance can be established so that humanity can be guided. After all, this is at the root of what we call history and philosophy. All of this information, all of this capacity to be guided by past experience, so much of it is rooted here at the end of this abstract process in the 33rd gate. We have a line here of disassociation, the ability to let go. This is a kind of withdrawal in which the retreat can be so complete that these people can walk through the world and be totally disconnected from it. The nature of reflection can be nothing more than an ongoing personal process because no reflection is really of value to the totality, unless it can be a reflection that can add to the experience of humanity, and humanity will accept that as a way to see themselves. In the White Book, the ability to let go and retreat, to enjoy privacy. These people can enjoy privacy for its own sake and feel no pressure to be brought out of their privacy. They can be private all the time. These are the kind of people that are private when they are public or when they intimate. They can always be private. These are people that will always hold things inside of them because there is no sense in revealing what they remember unless it can make a contribution to society. We have this funny twist that goes in the abstract. It is very beautiful. When we are looking at the 56.6, at the abstract belief process, I can stimulate you with my belief. We see that it goes to the 31.1, which is the gate of influence, the gate of saying, I lead, or I do not lead. So it goes from the abstract 56.6 to the logical leadership. Here, in the 33.6, the very next line is the 7.1. The 7 and the 31 form the channel of logical leadership together. In other words, both aspects of the abstract process, both the mental process and its identity, what they really want most of all is that it's just not another idea, that it is just not another experience, that it can be of value to guide humanity into the future. Human beings always want to be what they want. Logical people want to be able to reflect on the past, and abstract people want to be able to project into the future. Here, in this disassociation, there is the capacity to simply just let go of all that because, unless that you have a reflection that is going to guide humanity and lead them, it is not worthwhile. I am born into a generation that has Pluto in this gate. I have my design Pluto in 33.6, in disassociation, this letting go completely. I lived for 3.5 years totally alone and wild without any sense or need to go back in. Not only that, but with all the information that was going on inside of me, there was no need to share it with anybody because at that point, it just did not seem to be something to give to humanity. Not that I was thinking in those terms. The reality is that when you get to the 6th line, there is this, why should I bother? Why should I trust in this? And as we see, the logic is trying to go to the abstract to see that its projection into the future can be experienced and recognized for its value, and the abstract wants to project into the future and wants everybody to know that its experience can really be of value to the collective. This is this twist that goes on in the collective process. Every 6th line carries within it what some people call a potential for satori, or transcendence. We have many words for that. All 6 lines are about that. What that really means is that the 6th line has much tougher criteria for living out its nature than the other lines. In other words, it is much more concerned with larger principles. As such, it can end up being transcendent, wise, and of value to society as a whole. But, being what it is, the vast majority of human beings never really get to live out their 6 lines. They tend to be the opposite of what the hexagram says. An enormous amount of arrogance is projected onto people with 6 lines from the outside. You can see that in the 44.6, in the nature of aloofness. There is the sense that they are not really participating. If you hook into somebody's sixth line in an electromagnetic connection, it is not like hooking into any of the other lines. You do not even know if they are really responding to you. They may not. It depends on whether the hookup that they get from you can go beyond into many other things. I never have seen a design that did not impress me. I'm not saying that to be quaint. This is the nature of what it is. The fact that we all do not live out what we are is another story. Very few people live out the potential that is there in their design. They live out the potential of their conditioning. Not only do they not get an opportunity to live out the true nature of the six, they do not even get to live out themselves first. You can't get there anyway. It is quite a process. A 33.6 at the end of their reflection process can say, "Never again," as a kind of value for humanity. End of quote. Now let's move on to a different perspective to see how the 33rd gate sustains or communicates the purpose of life through the crosses of incarnation that are established when the conscious sun is placed within the 33rd gate. 33rd hexagram, right angle cross of the four ways 2, consisting of following gates 33, 19, 24, 44. People who retreat to reflect on experience before sharing their insights, memories, or principles. The need to be able to enclose oneself in the sanctity/privacy of one's own realm or room. Your cross is driven by the lead energy, which is looking for privacy. This is a retreating energy, which is actually looking for freedom that is only found in having your own space. This cross is tied to housing in many ways because having your own four walls where you can go and just be yourself is important to you. You may well be very social, but there comes a time when you need to be alone. This energy could manifest in many forms, but often is about the right for everyone to have their own space to be themselves. Juxtaposition, cross of retreat, consisting of following gates 33, 19, 2, 1. People who express the need for beauty in life. The aesthetics of retreat begin with enough food to eat and a roof over your head, your own space. Your energy is about the right for everyone to have their own little place of retreat. This is the start of the peace process. To have peace, everyone must have their own little territory, their own four walls in which they retreat and have their own space. You are here to bring this influence and manifest your passion. This is shown just by the example you set by being yourself, whether you are a designer, a city planner, an architect, or a volunteer for Habitat for Humanity. Any of these paths and more could be the way you live out your cross of retreat. Are these vocations tied to space only? Left angle, cross of refinement, consisting of following gates 33, 19, 2, 1. People who know that it is not enough to have and protect a home. Life is enriched by making it beautiful. Beauty that heals. You bring the energy of having your own living space and nice things within it. Part of the driving force is about privacy and having your own space, not just for you, but for the belief that it is everyone's right to have such a thing. In addition to the shelter a home provides, you desire some beauty within it to add to your life. You are here to ensure all of us have the right to our own private and inspiring space. I hope this material is helpful and supporting for the development of your human design knowledge. Please share if you enjoyed listening and subscribe if you want to be notified about any new posting of informative, learning materials regarding human design. This will help me growing this channel, and it will motivate me to post new practical materials. Thank you.